welcome none other than Congressman Brad Sherman.
Hello, I'm Brad Sherman from California's best named city, Sherman Oaks. I'm with my daughter Molly, who also is from America's best named city, Molly Sherman. And I have been with you for my 28 years in Congress, working with the the Organization of Iranian American Communities and the National Council of Resistance of Iran. And I want to take a minute to remember one of our allies and friends, my colleague Sheila Jackson Lee, who passed on a couple days ago. Many of you have been to many of these events where we heard from Sheila Jackson Lee. And I'm sure that she's up there beseeching God directly for human rights on this planet, for justice, and for the people of Iran. The Iranian people most recently have risen up as a result of the brutal murder of Mahsa Amini by the so-called morality police. And the regime has intensified its abuses since then. The issue was highlighted in April when the regime sentenced dissident rapper Tumaj, my pronunciation is Salini, to death. On June 5th, I led a dozen of my colleagues in a letter to President Biden urging the United States to advocate for the reversal of that incredibly unjust sentence and to sanction the regime's judges responsible for that sentence. Thankfully, domestic and international outrage over that death sentence has forced the regime to overturn it. But we must continue to call for the release of Iran's brave dissidents who have been fighting this regime in the hope that one day the people of Iran, the people who gave us the world's first human rights document, will be able to live in peace and to live in a country where we have the rule of law and democracy. We see that 2 students were jailed by the regime just this month for posting a simple photo of Tumaj what? Salim. I was just going to call him by his first name and avoid having to pronounce the name I might get right and I might get wrong. But this level of brutal repression is not something new for people in this room. We saw Ibrahim Raisi, who died in a plane crash, and we saw something rather disgusting. The Security Council of the United Nations having a minute of silence for the butcher of Tehran. I went to the floor of the House of the United States and led the House in a minute of silence for all of the victims of Raisi's brutality, including the 30,000 Iranian political prisoners who were tortured and murdered by death squads that Raisi led in 1988, and the 1,500 Iranian protesters murdered in 2019 in the bloody November crackdowns. I've worked with many of you on first House Resolution 100 with my friend and fellow Californian Tom McClintock, which calls for a democratic, secular, non-nuclear Republic of Iran and condemns the human rights violations. And it speaks favorably of Madam Rajavi's 10-point plan for the future of Iran. That resolution has 243 bipartisan co-sponsors. We have now focused on House Resolution 1148, condemning the regime's terrorism, its proxy wars, its internal repression, and I've enjoyed working with Congressman Randy Weber, and we now have 222 bipartisan co-sponsors. Last year, I led a letter with a dozen of our colleagues in response to the June 2023 raid on the Ashraf 3 compound. That letter urged that the residents of Ashraf 3 be respected. I have led a letter of 33 of our colleagues to Secretary Blinken, expressing concern over the terrorist threats by the Iranian regime targeting Iranian dissidents abroad, including the cyber attack in Albania. And the letter requests that the State Department work with Albania to assure the safety of Ashraf 3. And this highlights something. You know, a lot of people understand the evil of this regime. They look at the Houthi, who have not only killed as many Israeli civilians as they can, unfortunately, due to Iron Dome, not that many, but what have the Houthi done that doesn't get reported? They have strangled the Red Sea. So food shipments from Russia and Ukraine now cost more in Ethiopia and Bangladesh. And people who used to get 3 meals a day are now getting 2 meals a day. And talk to any medical statistician, those people are dying at a higher rate. How many thousands of people have the Houthi killed? We see Hezbollah. We see Hamas, which is now, I just got out of another event holding Americans hostage, but that isn't new. This regime held our diplomats hostage for hundreds of days. There was a false report that Jimmy Carter had passed today. Fortunately, that I believe is a false report, but we remember what they did during the Carter administration, how they held all of America hostage by holding our diplomats. But so many people, since the beginning of this regime, are aware of how evil it is. What they may not understand is a great honor that many people in this room have. Because you ask yourself, who does the regime hate the most? Because if you want to know a man, know him by his enemies. So who does, well, obviously they hate Israel. Obviously they hate America. But who do they use their own agents to kill everywhere around the world? The MEK. This is the organization that they are willing to violate every international law to try to go after. Whether it's in Albania or South America or Europe or Brussels or the United States. Why is that? Well, there is no better testimony to the effective advocacy against this regime than when the regime strikes out. And I certainly appreciate what the MEK has done to organize Iranian dissidents around the world, to organize people around the world, to work for a democratic, secular Republic of Iran, and a non-nuclear Iran, an Iran that will be promoting human rights and will not be a threat in the region or in the world. So I could go on longer. Many of you have heard me go on longer. But I'll try to wrap this up relatively quickly. The countless acts of brutality by this regime against its people and against the world and against hungry people from Ethiopia to Bangladesh, and when you count what the Houthi are doing, has caused people to take to the streets, screaming death to the dictator again and again. People in my district, I believe I represent more Iranian Americans than any other member of Congress, thanks to the gods of redistricting. Tehran Angeles is in the 32nd Congressional District. So It may take us a while, but I look forward to visiting a non-nuclear, democratic, free ally of the United States someday in Tehran. So thanks for putting this on. I have been, I believe, at every one of your meetings of this sort in the Capitol. I am always there when you have the event within 1,000 miles of where I am. And when it's more than 1,000 miles, I make a video. So I am there in spirit 100% of the time and look forward to doing that for another 28 years. I'm Brad Sherman. Thank you very much.